What if I told you that 1 hour of YouTube, just 1 hour, changes your toddler's brain in ways that last for years? Not weeks, not months, years. And the change is not just behavioral. It is structural. Scientists can see it on a brain scan. Stay with me, because what you are about to learn will completely change how you think about screen time in your home. Let us start with what is actually happening inside your child's brain the moment they pick up a tablet. The toddler brain is in the most sensitive period of its entire development. Between ages 1 and 3, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for attention, impulse control, and decision-making, is still being wired. It is not finished. It is not even close to finished. And it is being shaped right now by every single experience your child has. Every sound they hear, every image they see, every interaction they have or do not have. This is called experience-dependent brain development. The brain literally builds itself based on what it is exposed to most. So when your toddler spends an hour watching fast-moving YouTube videos with rapid scene changes, loud sounds, and constant novelty, the brain takes note. It begins to calibrate its attention system around that level of stimulation. Here is the problem. Real life does not move at YouTube speed. A conversation with a parent moves slowly. Reading a book together moves slowly. Playing with blocks moves slowly. And after an hour of YouTube, the toddler brain has been trained to expect a level of stimulation that the real world simply cannot match. So what happens next? The child gets bored, not normal boredom, neurological boredom. Their brain is now calibrated for a stimulation level that only a screen can provide. And when that screen goes away, they fall apart. The crying, the screaming, the meltdown that seems completely out of proportion. That is not a behavior problem. That is a brain calibration problem. And handing the screen back to stop the crying is the one thing that makes it worse. Every time the screen comes back after a meltdown, the brain learns. Meltdown equals screen returns. And the cycle deepens. Now let us talk about what the research actually says. A landmark study published in JAMA Pediatrics followed over 2,000 children between ages 2 and 5. Children who watched more than 1 hour of screens per day showed significantly lower scores in areas of brain development including language acquisition, executive function, and the ability to regulate attention. But here is what most people miss about that study. It was not just about how much screen time. It was about what the screen time replaced. Every hour on a screen is an hour not spent doing something else, an hour not spent in conversation, an hour not spent in imaginative play, an hour not spent exploring the physical world with their hands and bodies. And those replaced activities are not just nice to have, they are neurologically essential. Language develops through back-and-forth conversation, not through passive listening. Executive function develops through unstructured play, not through watching someone else play. Attention develops through boredom, not through constant stimulation. The screen does not just add something harmful, it removes something irreplaceable. Let us go deeper into the attention piece because this is where the long-term damage lives. There is a chemical in the brain called dopamine. You have probably heard of it. Dopamine is released when the brain experiences something novel, exciting, or rewarding. YouTube is essentially a dopamine delivery machine. Every new video, every new sound, every unexpected moment. Each one triggers a small dopamine release. And the toddler brain, which has never experienced anything like this before, becomes rapidly calibrated to expect these dopamine hits at a pace the real world cannot sustain. Over time, with repeated exposure, the brain begins to down-regulate its dopamine receptors. This means it takes more stimulation to feel the same level of reward. The child needs more screen time to feel satisfied, more novelty to feel interested, more stimulation to feel engaged. This is not a metaphor. This is the same neurological mechanism behind addiction. A 2019 study from the National Institutes of Health found that children who spent more than 2 hours a day on screens scored lower on thinking and language tests, and brain scans showed premature thinning of the cortex, the outer layer of the brain responsible for critical thinking, attention, and impulse control. These children were not teenagers. They were 9 years old, and the thinning had already begun. Now, before you feel overwhelmed, I want to be very clear about something. This is not about eliminating screens entirely. That is not realistic for most families. And the research does not ask for that either. What the research asks for is awareness and intentionality, because not all screen time is equal. Passive consumption, watching YouTube alone with no interaction, no conversation, no connection, is the most damaging type. Co-viewing, watching together with a parent who talks about what is on screen, asks questions, and makes connections, is significantly less harmful. Interactive content, video calls with grandparents, educational apps that require responses, activates different parts of the brain entirely. The difference is not the screen. The difference is whether there is a human relationship wrapped around the screen experience. So what do you actually do? Here are 3 evidence-based shifts that make a measurable difference. Shift 1. Replace the first 30 minutes of screen time each day with one physical activity. It does not have to be elaborate. Blocks on the floor, Play-Doh at the table, water play in the kitchen sink. These activities engage the hands, the body, and the imagination simultaneously, activating more neural pathways in 30 minutes than an hour of passive video ever could. Shift 2. When screen time does happen, be in the room. Not hovering, not narrating every second, just present. Ask one question about what they are watching. What is that character doing? Does that seem fair to you? What do you think happens next? These questions activate the prefrontal cortex during screen time instead of letting it go completely offline. Shift 3. Create a transition ritual before the screen goes off. The meltdown does not happen because your child is manipulative. It happens because the brain shift from high stimulation to low stimulation is genuinely overwhelming for a nervous system that is still developing. A 5-minute warning helps. A consistent phrase helps even more. Try. We have 5 more minutes, and then we are going to do something together. The key words are together. The brain calms when connection is promised, because connection is what the developing brain wants most, not the screen. The screen is just the closest available substitute when connection feels scarce. That is the real message underneath all of this research. Your toddler is not addicted to YouTube. Your toddler is hungry for stimulation, connection, and novelty. YouTube just figured out how to deliver all 3 faster than any human can. But faster is not better. Not for a brain that is still being built. Not for a nervous system that needs to learn how to self-regulate. Not for a child who needs to discover that the real world and the people in it are interesting enough. That discovery only happens when the screen is off long enough for boredom to do its work. And boredom, as uncomfortable as it feels for everyone in the room, is not the enemy. Boredom is the beginning of creativity. Boredom is where imagination is born. Boredom is the brain saying, I need to build something from nothing. And that is exactly the kind of brain you want your child to have. So here is your one action for today. Pick one 30-minute window tomorrow morning, before the screens come on, and protect it. Fill it with anything physical, anything that uses their hands, anything that requires them to figure something out. Watch what happens in that window. Watch the focus that emerges. Watch the creativity that surfaces. That is not your child being entertained. That is your child's brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. If this video gave you something to think about today, subscribe to Quiet Parenting. Every day we translate the latest neuroscience into one simple thing you can do differently, because your child's brain is being shaped right now, and you have more say in that than any algorithm ever will. See you tomorrow.